I went and asked 100 entrepreneurs one question, and it exposed something that I think we should all be addressing in our own finances. A lot of these are very confident, visible, and successful entrepreneurs. Until I asked the question. Hello, welcome back to Spicy Takes and Tax Breaks. I'm Aubree Denekamp, also known here as the Write-Off Queen. And today we're spicing it up a little bit. We're not talking about the tax tricks or about taking write-offs, not even about how to make more money, actually. We're talking about something that most high earners don't say out loud. I went and asked 100 entrepreneurs one question, and it exposed something that I think we should all be addressing in our own finances. The question was simple, or so I thought it was going to be. If your income stopped tomorrow, what would you actually be afraid of? I asked for a real, raw, unfiltered answer, and I was surprised by what I got back. What surprised me the most is that none of them said taxes. Not one of the 100 said taxes. Whether that's because they are working with the best team or not, I don't really know. But taxes is one of the highest expenses for most business owners or most high income earners at best. And almost none of them even said the IRS. A few did, but I thought compliance would be up there on some of the things. But almost all of them were afraid of the same thing, and that was collapse. Lifestyle collapse, business ego collapse, asset liquidation, not knowing the true numbers and what they could sustain, and realizing that potentially the success that they feel and might be portraying doesn't feel as safe as they think. And that's when I realized something that is pretty uncomfortable. We do have so many incredible entrepreneurs making amazing amounts of money and fast, but a lot of them are structurally fragile. They have high income, low insulation, and they appear really powerful on the outside, and they might be really powerful in the moment, but there's so much pressure building underneath. And there's sometimes a disconnect there. That's not only uncomfortable, but it's really, really dangerous to operate financially off of. So today we're talking about the difference between income and security. Because if your success disappears the moment your revenue pauses, it's not wealth, it's momentum at best. And momentum doesn't always last. So let's get into it. I want to set the stage here before we go into the entrepreneurs I spoke to. These weren't struggling business owners. Most of them were making at minimum 500K per year and some upwards of 20, 30 million per year. And some going into the 8 figures if you're including investments and other things like that. A lot of these are very confident, visible, and successful entrepreneurs. Until I asked the question, things started to shake, energy change. You could hear the shift in kind of, how is this question going to end? A lot of them are so confident, they're visible, they're successful, and on the inside and outside, those things are true. But you can hear the shift, and why that is the fear. Because high income is so loud often, and it's so busy. But weak structure is so silent, and silence hides a lot of the risk. You can look successful, you can be successful, you can drive the car, own the house, take those luxury trips. But if your wealth disappears the moment your income pauses, it's not stability. The moment that stops, you're looking at momentum dependency. And the thing about momentum is it does feel powerful. It does bring up your adrenaline. But when it stops, the real metric comes into place. And if your income stopped tomorrow, would your life also pause? Would it collapse? It's something we should all be asking ourselves. So I want to go through the top 5 answers that I heard. And I was really surprised. These were kind of the main ones, but they all dive down to the same fear spot. So the first one is that people would have to sell something. That answer came up constantly. I'd have to sell a property. I'd have to sell a business. I'd have to liquidate investments. I'd have to cash something out. And that means there's not enough of a liquidity buffer there. Everything is tied up in either lifestyle, illiquid assets at the time, future assumptions. And listen, I encourage owning assets. That is a great thing. But if you can't survive even 6 to 12 months without selling something to sustain those assets, you really don't own your wealth. And that's not something that's abundant and that you can grow on. It's a ton of pressure to uphold too. Second answer I got was that my lifestyle would collapse. This one came from my highest earners. They have these beautiful homes, private school tuitions, and luxury travel with their spouses, their families, employees, whatever that is. And for some of them, expenses rise just as quickly as that income does, and assets don't grow with that. So they've scaled their lifestyle, they've grown their revenue exponentially, but they didn't scale any leverage with it. So here's the uncomfortable truth behind that. Lifestyle expansion without any sort of structural expansion too is such a fragile state of success to be in. And if that machine stops, the illusion cracks and quickly. So there's so much fear constantly, even if you're not feeling it daily or saying it out loud, you're often waiting for that other shoe to fall, whether it does or doesn't. A lot of times though, it does. Number 3 was, I'm not actually sure what I net or what I'm worth. And as a numbers nerd personally, this one was disappointing to hear, but hundreds of thousands or millions earned in a year, most of them wouldn't know what their actual net after tax, after reinvestment, and after reserves were. They almost all knew their gross, but the problem is you can't make strategic decisions if you don't know what your true profit is, effective tax rate, real liquidity if you needed it, cash flow after the obligations you're already committed to. If you don't have that, you're blind. Really. And blindness breeds so much anxiety, worry, and uncertainty. So that's why a lot of people are operating through those, making decisions off of that fear and that uncertainty. The number 4 answer I got was, I really don't trust my numbers. What does that mean? So they don't trust their bookkeeping, their financials, their projections, their taxes, or maybe they just don't even understand them. So what that means is they're making decisions based on fear or emotionally or what sounds good in a moment, not financially driven decisions. And emotional business decisions and high spending with high revenue are often super expensive and can be really damaging. So you can't scale confidently without any sort of clean data. Data reduces the fear. Fear can help you make the decision poorly if you have it, but you can do it data-driven, very responsibly, as well as know what your return is going to be. Clarity reduces that hesitation, and structure builds this calmness around you to make those decisions. This last one surprised me the most, actually. A lot of the people I spoke to said that they feel successful on the inside and outside, but they don't feel secure in that success. So this one was a lot quieter for most, and a few people spun out in different ways, but it definitely was the most revealing to me. Let's say it again. I feel successful, but I don't feel safe within it. So that is income-dependent wealth. So if your confidence is directly tied to this or next month's revenue, you're living on that adrenaline. It's spinning round and around, and adrenaline can feel good. It can feel powerful, exciting, but it's not stable always. And you want stability when you're having to make these decisions and plan. What if something happens? Do you really want to have to uproot your whole life or sell everything to make your life work again? Not often, but there's so many things that you can do to protect yourself against this. So remember, let's go through kind of like what the psychological run would be on this is that entrepreneurs, yourself probably included, we are likely almost always high risk tolerant. We will bet on ourselves, we will start a company, take the risk, leave a job, whatever that is for that next thrill, because we do believe in ourselves. We are risk tolerant. So we might be extra brave with revenue and expenses and risks, but timid with architecture, building sustainable structures because we've always been go, go, go to the next thing. So a lot of business owners will invest so much money, whether that is in networking, marketing, growing their team, hiring employees, and they will hesitate on something that is even a nominal expense for like entity optimization, tax planning, liquidity modeling, asset protection. Why is that? It's because revenue is exciting. Structure is quiet, a lot less thrilling, but the quiet typically wins. And what was interesting is the entrepreneurs that answered this question with most ease were not the highest earners in most percentage here. They were the most structured though. They had 6 to 12 months liquid. They had their quarterly projections not only done, but paid on time. They had clear compensation strategies, clean financial reporting. They understood what that financial reporting was. They had separate asset buckets for different things, personal and business. They had different money making money from them in other areas. The debt that they created was intentionally structured to help them, not to consume them. They had optionality, and optionality reduces fear huge, huge, huge. So what is the fix for this? It's your income stopped. How are you going to survive? You typically need 5 things. One is liquidity. 6 to 12 months typically of personal and business runway. So this doesn't mean you have it tied up in crypto, not in other equity accounts, and it's not on paper or in your home. It's liquid, available funds. The next is going to be tax clarity. You really should know your effective tax rate for the year, but also the prior year, your projected liability for the year, and then you should at a minimum have an annual entity optimization plan, making sure that you're structured correctly, that it's going to benefit you in the long run. It shouldn't be a guess. You should know it, plan it, and strategize against it to benefit you. The third is going to be compensation structure. Make sure that your entity is set up correctly first. Make sure that you are set to a way that's going to be optimized for you and what you're making and what you're spending. Then make sure you're compliant within that. So if you're an S Corp, is your salary defensible? Is it reasonable? And is it paid on time? If you're a Schedule C, does that entity still make sense for you? Is it time to restructure? Are you paying yourself intentionally or making random transferring funds that maybe aren't showing correctly? Or are you not paying back a loan or startup cost that you've contributed to your company that you could be taking out without a tax deference? Those are things that you should be looking at and planning with to benefit you. Number 4 is going to be clean financial reporting. I know this is boring and most people don't love it, but monthly reconciled books, having that clear P&L, understanding what your cash flow is, not having the mystery behind it is so important. If you hate it, hire someone for it. The 5th is going to be creating an asset allocation plan. Business income should not be your only wealth source. Diversification creates so much stability, so different areas can be making different money for you. And that stability definitely creates power in your portfolio. So I do want to leave you guys with this. You should not be making $400, $600, $2 million, $10 million a year and still feel this low-grade anxiety humming in the background. If you do, it is not a hustle issue. It is not a mindset issue. It is almost always a structure issue. Looking successful but feeling fragile or unsafe is exhausting. It's waking up thinking about next month's revenue. Is my person paid me yet? When is payroll? Is there enough money in the account? It's feeling powerful on the outside and pressure underneath that is not where you want to be. It's not wealth. That's volatility with good branding at best or high monthly revenue that has just as high of expenses. And volatility eventually exposes itself, almost always at least. And if this episode made you uncomfortable, I want you to sit with that. I want you to think about it and make it different. Because discomfort really isn't criticism, it's growth. It's awareness. And awareness is the first step to design and make something that structurally works for you. So you're not behind, you're just at a point where revenue alone isn't always going to be enough, especially if you're consistently having to work to get that. So it's about stabilizing what you've already built. Real power, making it grow for you, isn't about how much you make. It's about how much you control after it pauses or as it's coming through. So if this has resonated at all for you, please make sure to forward this along to another entrepreneur who is making tons of money, making it work, but maybe doesn't feel safe throughout it. And if you're ready to build that structure instead of just chasing growth, stay here because we are building smarter this year, not so much harder. So again, this is Spicy Takes and Tax Breaks. I'm Aubree, and we'll see you next time.